So our first lesson is going to be about core strength and postural control. So why is that so important? It's not just for posture, but posture, you want to think about it like a tree trunk, right? So if there's a tree and that the tree is having a hard time with the leaves and the flowers, you're not going to just prune over there and just fix the area over there. You're going to really look at the roots, you're going to look at the trunk, you're going to look at the whole base before you look at everything else. And it's the same thing with our kiddos. When a child is having a hard time, for example, sitting at the table, being able to pay attention, or handwriting, we want to look at their core. Because if a child's core is not strong, then there's going to be so many compensations. So let's think about it already at circle time. When they're sitting at circle time, if they have a poor core, a weak core, let's call it like that, then they slouch, then they're always moving because they have to rearrange their position because it's uncomfortable for them to be sitting for too long because the core is so weak. They'll have to lie down and then they touch their friends and then everything just escalates from there. And so they're the ones that are the fidgety kiddos because the core is not strong, so they can't just sit upright. Now, another time that you can see this being a challenge is when our children are sitting at the table. If they are, again, have poor posture, then there's going to be more slouching. If there's more slouching, that means that they are bearing on their forearms to be able to keep themselves upright. And if they bear on their forearms, then what happens? That means that the fingers are not used um, the way that we want to use them. It's because the forearm is supporting the body, and because it's supporting the body, then we can't freely use the fingers. Whereas if the arms are free to move because we have good posture, then that means that we could use wrist control, we can use our fingers more freely. We have more pure movement in that sense. There's no compensation that's being done by the leaning in the forearms. Another important thing about posture is that when a child puts their head down, usually it's maybe because they need more oxygen to the brain, because there's that weakness in the core. It affects their attention. It's things that we really want to look at. Now, if you do see a child that is often slouching, often leaning on their table, there are also some reflexes that we could talk about, and that is really more therapy based. It's not for teachers to worry about, but you want to know about that just because this is where you might want to ask a therapist to come in and take a look at your little kiddo. So again, core is important because you want to think about it as the trunk of your tree. We want that to be nice and solid because it's a beautiful base for all the other fine motor activities that we want to do. So how does this look in your classroom? Let's talk about circle time again. When their little ones are sitting on the floor, if you feel that they are moving around a lot, they're slouching a lot, there's a few things that you want to do. One, we talk about compensating, meaning we have them sit on something that gives them more support, sitting on a chair, something like that, sitting against the wall, sitting in a corner. Sometimes circle times have a corner because of the shelving, the way that it's positioned, so you have the ability to do that. Or you have them sit next to a teacher. Those are all ways to compensate for that poor core. Now, as a teacher, if you, let's say, wanted to work on the core, then you want to incorporate little activities in your circle time, in your daily movements that will help with the core. And core is not just the stomach muscles, but it's also the back muscles. So if a child is, let's say, you're having them lay on their tummy and weight bear on their arms while they're doing their coloring, that is going to, for example, strengthen their lower back. That is one way that you can work on core. You can also do a lot of little fun Simon Says activities that will help them um, utilize their core to strengthen it. So again, it is not necessarily the teacher's responsibility to increase a child's core, but when you know that, then you can incorporate some of those little activities in your daily routine. Now, when we look at children's core when they're sitting at a table, we want to ensure a few things. We want to ensure that the child is sitting what we call the 90-90-90 rule, meaning it's 90 degrees at the hip when they sit, almost like a letter L, 90 degree at the knees, again, that bend, and 90 degrees at the ankles. That means that their feet are grounded. When a child's feet are not grounded, what's going to happen if their feet are dangling from a chair? And I'm very short, so I can appreciate that a lot. Your feet dangle, you feel like you're slipping in the chair, you're going to move your body a lot. You'll see a lot of the little ones might sit on their knees. So we don't want to do that because it's not the most efficient way to sit at a table and learn. We want them to have their feet grounded on the floor. So that's when you make sure that you put either a book or you either lower the table or lower the chair. You want to really be mindful of that. Now they say that the elbow at the tabletop should be about 30-degree angle, because sometimes I will see teachers that will do this whole 90-90-90 rule and they sit the child at the table, but then the table is too high and the child's elbows are up here and then they have to write or color. That's not the right way to have it. We want like a nice little 30-degree bend. Um, so again, what I want you to notice, so to wrap up about core, what you want to notice is think about the core as being the trunk of the tree, and you really want that to have a beautiful, stable position to allow everything else in the body to move with a much better precision and ability.